Hello everyone, welcome back to Scylla's Podcats, or welcome to Scylla's Podcats, and welcome to a very different perspective of a room you've never seen before, because I'm currently not at home. I am more than a few thousand kilometers away, just by air travel alone, because I'm currently in the Philippines, and I will stay here for 2 months, well, 1.5 months by now, because it's already the middle of September, which I did not anticipate. It is very warm. So if I start sweating on camera, that's normal. I think we currently have 29 degrees or something. I'm not turning that into Fahrenheit for Americans, you have Google for a reason. But it's suffice to say, it's very warm, it's very humid. But I haven't done a video in a very long time because arranging to go here has been an absolute nightmare. For me, personally, you know, the people I talked to were very nice about it, but things happened, let's just say that. But I thought, you know, I took my camera with me because I thought I might make some videos here and there, maybe some vlogs as well, just in general to show that I'm having a good time, which I am. And I also did actually take some books with me, 4 physical books if I remember correctly, one of which I've finished that I want to talk about today, as you can see in the title of this video, and I am in the process of reading a bunch of ebooks that I've had for quite a while, because my ebook TBR is currently at 120 books. I don't want to talk about it. I'm confident that I'll get it down to 100 by the end of this trip, though. Anyway, back on topic. Let's talk about the book that I've been meaning to talk about ever since I finished it, which has been a little bit. I finished this on the flight here, which was August 30, I think. It is a fantastic book, and it made me cry on the plane. So, everyone welcome into the room, Chain Gang All-Stars by Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah. This is... I don't even know how to adequately describe this book to give it the justice it deserves, so we're doing a video on it where I talk about something else as well. But without a lot of spoilers, Chain Gang All-Stars is set in a dystopian future in the American continent where prisoners of the American federal system get a choice between either staying in the prison that they were confined to under the horrific situations that the carceral system in the United States unfortunately has, or they get to assign themselves, or well, say yes to the so-called K program, which is a program that puts all of them into gladiator roles where they get to fight to the death with each other. And if they win enough death matches, they become high-freed, which essentially means that they walk free of all their sins and they never have to be a prisoner ever again. Yes, you get to guess really quickly how many high-freed people we have, and then you get to discard the notion that the system is ever fair to begin with. Now, the thing about Chain Gang All-Stars that got me, apart from the fact that the topic is very important in my humble opinion, is that not only is this book fiction, because it is, it very much is fiction, but the book has such a heavy and great foundation on abolitionist movements in the United States that it is entirely impossible to divorce this book from current cultural happenstances and current fighting stances that people have that are abolitionists that do not agree with the carceral system. In this case, specifically in the US, the book is very centralized in the US. It is not trying to make a claim on the entire world and what is happening in the entire world, which I personally think is fine, because the book is, let me have a quick look. The book is 360 pages. There is not enough time to talk about prison systems all over the world, and it is not necessary because this book is making a point specifically about the United States carceral system and how horrific it is. The book is told from various different perspectives, most of all from Loretta Thurwas and Hurricane Stax's, or what's her other name? It's been a while since I read this book, as I said, but let me see that real quick. I'll figure it out. I know I will. Hamara Stacker, yes. So it's mostly told from the perspective or about the story of Hamara Stacker, who is called Hurricane Stax in the arena, and Loretta Serwa, who is just called Serva, who are both part of the CAPE program, who are both part of a chain gang. A chain is a prisoner who is fighting for their life in these horrific situations, and both of them are part of the same chain, which means that both essentially are technically supposed to support each other. Practically, sometimes chains also have a lot of infighting issues where they maim and kill each other outside of the arena, because of course the CAPE program very much fosters that kind of violence that happens. And so these two women are part of this horrific system and are trying to fight for their survival as well as for their eventual freedom, even though both don't necessarily have a lot of hopes regarding that. It's very important for me to say that this book hits incredibly hard and incredibly deep, and there's not a lot of happiness to be found in these pages, as you might have, thought when I told you a little bit about what this book is about. On the other hand, we have characters like Niall and Mari, who are part of an abolitionist movement specifically designed for what is happening in this book, aka for the CAPE program specifically. They are always protesting, they're always saying things like, this program is bullshit, this program hurts people, it hurts more people than it does good. There is no way that we can defend a system that does something like this because it's not a good thing, which they are right in. And on the other hand, you also have a various amount of other characters, some also prisoners in the CAPE program, some watchers who get to enjoy these gladiator games either through recordings or front and center as the people who are sitting by the arena and who get entertained by everything, which is horrific. It is horrific in the way that they don't really care about the people who are in the CAPE program itself. Another thing that I really enjoyed about this book is, as I said, it very clearly does not just draw parallels to the United States carceral system right now, it very clearly also has a lot of statistics from that. For example, like how many women get raped in prison, how many people get incarcerated even though they are innocent or get proven innocent later or something along those lines. There was a horrific part where a character gets tortured in prison, and the footnote, because there's a lot of footnotes in this book, the footnote essentially just cited the paragraph in US law about torture and how torture is not allowed, except basically for when you are in prison, which, a whole other horrific thing and a whole other horrific scenario. These footnotes, in my opinion, enhanced the text even more, to the point where it is impossible to not see the point that the text is making, which is that the prison system as it stands in the United States is a sham and is horrific to both inmates and also literally anyone else in the entire society. It makes its point incredibly obvious that this is about modern day slavery. Nothing else, nothing more. The federal carceral system is bad and should be abolished. That is the point that this book makes. And if you come away from this book with any other reading of what its message is trying to be, I do suggest that you read up on some of the people that the author name drops in his acknowledgments, who are abolitionists, who have fought against the law here, and who keep fighting, who keep protesting in real life about the carceral system and its violent injustices, really, for both inmates as well as, family of inmates, as well as just anyone existing in US society as of right now. And now that I've come to this point, now that I've hopefully made all of you interested in picking this book up, because I personally think it is fantastic, I do recommend you not read the end while you are in public, though, because you might make yourself into a public embarrassment, as I did, so don't do that. But while we're on the topic of this book being impossible to remove from current days happenings and current day society, specifically in the United States, I want to talk about something real quick. And what I want to talk about is how the way that we perceive books changes the rating that we give these books. Now, I'm not trying to make this into a lecture, because I personally believe that the rating of a book, like how much people enjoy a book and how much attention they give a book and how much they recommend a book to other people, very much depends on a lot of different factors. First and foremost, a book is a written medium, and if you do not agree with the way it is written, you are probably not going to enjoy your time as much as you want to, even if the topic is very interesting to you or if the topic is very fascinating to you. Like, for instance, I know myself, I lovingly call myself a little bit of a literature slob every once in a while because I like highbrow literature. I like literature with a prose that makes me think every sentence through to the end. I like what a lot of people already call purple prose. I know that about myself. I know that sometimes I don't give books enough of a chance, quote unquote, because I'm already biased against it depending on just how it's written. Which is okay. That is a genuine preference I have, and it is something that I am fully aware of, and so every time I read a book that does not fulfill my standards when it comes to prose, I try to be fair to the book itself, while also considering my inherent biases against books that don't have a prose that agrees with me immediately. Okay? On the other hand, since books, unless you're reading nonfiction, are fictional, there's also a lot of aspects about the fictional world that you might not agree with, that you might not like. Like, for instance, you might not like the fictional characters that you are presented with. You might not like how their struggles are represented. You might not like how they act on page. Again, that is fine. All of these things can influence your rating in a positive or a negative way, and at least to a certain degree, there's not that much you can do about it. We all have our preferences, and that's okay. But I do believe that there's also a lot of different things that influence ratings that we might want to look at a little bit closer every once in a while, just so we can make sure that we're being fair. Which perhaps is the wrong word to use here. I just haven't come up with the right word to use here yet. Because, again, reading is about your own personal preference, but I think we can all stop pretending like the bookmark is fair, right? Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah is a Black author. He writes about almost exclusively Black characters in the very unfair carceral system and how it predominantly subjects Black people, brown people, anyone who isn't white, to the worst suffering imaginable. This is influencing people's ratings on the book, and I am tired of pretending that it does not. A lot of people, and I think that even the ones who haven't read this book yet might agree with this statement just on the basis of what I told you about this. A lot of people compare this book to The Hunger Games, and I personally think that is fair in terms of if you want to recommend someone a book and you know that they have read and like The Hunger Games, you might tell them, hey, here's an adult book that you might enjoy that covers similar premises, which are basically just people are forced to fight to the death in death matches that are organized on an entertainment schedule by the very horrible government structure in place. That is the baseline for both The Hunger Games and Chain Gang All-Stars. And it is fully alright to go, hey, I know you, insert your friend's name here, have read and liked The Hunger Games, so maybe if you want to delve more into adult dystopian fiction, you want to give this one a try. I have nothing against that. This is how I recommend books to people. I try to find similarities to the books they've already read and liked, and go, hey, hear me out here. This is how we make sense of the entire world, right? We make sense of it by comparing things to each other. But the problem arises when that comparison touches on things that are not entirely valid or fair to both books, and then puts down one in favor of the other. And what I specifically talk about here is that a lot of people who have read both books and who keep talking about how this is essentially Hunger Games but for adults, which I also don't fully agree with, but that's a bit more of a nuanced topic that I can't really get into in a review that is supposed to be mainly spoiler-free. The problem is if people keep insisting that The Hunger Games does it better than Chain Gang All-Stars. At this point in my life where I am right now, having read both books, and one of them multiple times, might I add, I think there is a fundamental issue here that some people fall victim to when they rate this book lower than The Hunger Games. And I'm saying this again with the caveat that this is also dependent upon the characters. If you like Katniss more than you like Loretta Thelwa, there's not a lot I can do except ask you to maybe tell me why that might be, because both are not necessarily quote-unquote likable characters all the way through, as in they are both very complex characters who don't necessarily always do things that we deem as good or as right or as understandable from where we are, because both are faced with horrific circumstances, right? So, of course, there's things that people might not like about this book that are entirely dependent on the fact that it is a fictional book written by an author who wanted to at least partially present a fictional story that does not agree with people for one reason or another. But I think that at least partially this reason of dislike might stem from the fact that you cannot divest Chain Gang All-Stars from the reality that we currently face. Hunger Games, at its core, apart from the fact that, we have this corrupt government that forces children to fight to the death against each other, Hunger Games, at its core, is about an uprising against a corrupt government. It is about an uprising of the oppressed, who are needlessly and cruelly oppressed, against a government that fully knows what it's doing. We watch children, who we all collectively agree are innocent, we watch children fight each other to the death. Innocent people. And so we are, from the very start of the series, supposed to be on the side of the districts and against the capital. That is a fine way to structure a book like this. This is not a critique of the Hunger Games. Not necessarily, that is. This is how the book is structured, though. Chain Gang All-Stars is very different. Chain Gang All-Stars deals with criminals. A lot of the people in the CAPE program are legitimate criminals. They've murdered people, they've committed arson, maybe also, maybe someone has died because of arson. There's rapists in there. There is an allusion to neo-Nazis at some point. That was a whole thing. That lasts approximately 3 chapters, but never mind that. These people are not what we would consider good people in like 99.9% of the case. This is the point that the author is trying to make. The author is trying to make the point that even if you are a criminal, even if you've done horrific things, you do not deserve to be treated the way that these people are treated in Chain Gang All-Stars. You do not deserve to have to fight for your life in a battle to the death over and over again to the entertainment of millions of people, because at the end of the day, no matter what you've done, you are a person, and you deserve to be treated with the dignity that every person should be allowed. This book is not about easy answers. This book is confronting everyone with the reality that even if there's people in prison that deserve to be there, they don't deserve to be subjected to the cruelty of the system itself. It's a very harsh question, and it's a very harsh reality, and this is, in my opinion, part of the reason why some people shy away from this book, and it makes me very angry sometimes. I know I don't sound angry right now. This is because I already talked this through with other people where I got to yell. And again, I would like to reiterate that, of course, this is not the end-all reason as to why people don't like this book or give it a worse rating. Again, this is a fictional book. There are many factors why people might not like it. This is specifically talking about the people who compare this book to The Hunger Games, because the thing about The Hunger Games is, as much as it is about the uprising against a corrupt government that treats its people unfairly and very cruelly, it has a very clear narrative as to who is the good person and who is the bad person. No matter how much you try to make it into a very modern think piece, which to a certain degree it is very removed from any kind of modern concepts that we have right now. The only reason we know that The Hunger Games is set in America is because the author has said so. The land is called Panem. The districts are very openly numbered. No one remembers America. No one remembers that an America existed before Panem happened. That's not a problem, it's just a fact. Chain Gang All-Stars is so exclusively set in the United States that you cannot close your eyes before it. And so I think that what this does to some people is it makes them incredibly uncomfortable because they are unable to divorce a fictional book from the lived realities of people in the carceral system in the United States. And it makes me angry because I think that at some point we as readers, especially as readers from somewhat more privileged backgrounds, like I am in this specific case, we rely a lot on comfort, and we rely a lot on lying to ourselves about how much a book actually describes a lived reality in the world that we exist in right now. And I think that sometimes all of us collectively should at least try to think about why a book makes us so uncomfortable. And I think Chain Gang All-Stars is one of the best books to start at, because this book absolutely refuses to let you be comfortable. And I understand that this is not everyone's cup of tea. I know why. Some of us live incredibly shitty lives. The world is currently burning on both ends. We still have a pandemic to think about. We still have thousands of people dying every day in different countries all around the world to think about. But I think that the least those of us who live in relative comfort can do is engage with uncomfortable topics and think to ourselves why they make us dislike things. And again, I have said this at least 3 times by now. I would like to reiterate, I am not definitively saying that this is the reason people dislike this book. I'm not saying you have to like the book that is trying to show a very uncomfortable reality just because it's about an uncomfortable reality and it is written by a Black author. I do not agree with the sentiment of liking a book simply because of the identity of the author or of the real-life struggles that said author is writing about. I don't believe in that. I don't agree to that. I have Black authors I don't like. I have white authors I don't like. I have Chinese authors I don't like. I have a lot of things to say about a lot of different authors from a lot of different places, but I do think that we have a certain duty to try and look at what makes us uncomfortable and what we don't like and try to figure out why that is, especially when we're talking about marginalized authors talking about very uncomfortable social topics. Because, and I've said this at the beginning, relatively at the beginning of the video, because the book market is not fair. The world is not fair. Marginalized authors are marginalized authors for a reason. Black authors are disproportionately excluded from the market as opposed to white authors. They are. We know this. Every single year we publish statistics about the publishing industry, how many Black authors they have, how many Latin American authors they have, how many Asian authors they have, Asian diaspora they have. We publish so many statistics and it always comes out the same way. We disproportionately see white authors being featured on the publishing market, and we disproportionately do not see authors of color, and especially Black authors, featured on the market. And the Black authors who are often get put under horrible and very intense scrutiny that their white peers never have to experience. And I know this isn't fair to a certain degree, right? First of all, obviously, because it's not fair to do that, period, and second of all, because sometimes you're just over here like, but I just want to dislike a book in peace without, having to deeper think about this. I get that. I've been there. I understand that. I am just asking you to look at the things that make you deeply uncomfortable, especially when there's such a clear comparison between 2 books, one of which was written by a white woman and the other one was written by a Black man. Both feature a similar system but have very different ways of going about it, and I just invite you to sit with your discomfort at Chain Gang All-Stars and sit with the discomfort of having to live in the heads of people who want to see Black prisoners suffer on stage for their amusement. I invite you to sit with that, to breathe through it, and then to think to yourself, why do I dislike it? Or do I dislike it at all? Is it just making me uncomfortable and I don't want to face that? It's alright to be uncomfortable when reading books. It's also alright to every now and then be not in the headspace whatsoever to engage with difficult topics via literature, especially not when the literature refuses to let you see it just through a lens of fiction. Again, this for me is the difference between Hunger Games and Chain Gang All-Stars. Hunger Games allows you a sort of discrepancy between what is fiction and what is reality, because it sounds incredibly removed from the current context that we have. This book does not do that. And I understand that sometimes we don't have the headspace for that, and that's okay. Which is also why I'm telling you right now, I encourage you to read this book. I do encourage you to read it at a time where you feel at least a little bit more stable in life than we sometimes do, especially with everything going on right now. But I implore you to sit with the discomfort that books cause you, especially when they talk about real-life issues from the perspective of marginalized communities. I encourage you to do that, and I encourage you to make your own opinion after having sat with that. That sounded a bit preachy, I do apologize for that, but I think this is an incredibly important topic to talk about, and this book, specifically with its comparison to the Hunger Games, absolutely lends itself to that discussion, because as I said, it just refuses to be seen as only a fictional book. This is not meant to elevate the book or to downgrade it in any kind of way. I personally think it's just a fact of the book, if that makes sense. It's not better or worse than other dystopian fiction just because it depicts a very real reality by just, you know, exaggerating things ever so slightly. I just also think that this is a reason why some people might be incredibly uncomfortable with the book and might then also rate it worse, and I think that that is not fair to the book or the author or the content that the book is trying to talk about. Because this book, in my opinion, is made to make you feel uncomfortable. There is a reason why we exist in the head of spectators a lot. It's not just Loretta, and it's not just Tamara, it's not just Hendrix, who's another prisoner who's fighting for his life in the whole cave program. We do not just exist in the head of the prisoners who are fighting inside the corrupt system and who are suffering from it, and we also do not just exist in the heads of Mari and Niall, who are fighting against the entire system from the outside because they don't want innocent people to suffer, but they also don't want murderers to suffer because they think that the only thing it does is make the people in power happy, and that is not what they want to have, that is not what they want to live through. We also exist in the heads of people like Will, who really, really likes the death matches, who gets himself a front row seat to Thelma in, like, I think the second or third chapter, killing a 14-year-old boy because he's forced into the death matches because he killed his parents. We exist in the heads of these people in this book precisely because the author wanted to make the point that everyone can be part of a corrupt and horrifying system that dehumanizes an entire population of people, because that is exactly what is happening with the US carceral system. And I think that everyone, specifically those who are trying to understand more about the abolitionist movement, but don't have the headspace as of right now to pick up nonfiction sources, I think you should start with this simply because it might give you a better understanding about how empathy is used in the abolitionist movement. But also, just in general, I think you should pick this book up because you should be feeling uncomfortable about this particular topic, and I think you should sit with that discomfort. And I invite everyone in the comments, I invite everyone who's watching this video, I invite everyone who has ever heard of this book, who's ever thought about this book, who's ever thought about picking this up, I invite all of you to sit in your discomfort in my comments. I don't mind that. I don't mind any discussions that arise in the comments. I think discussions are the way that we understand things, because once we start talking about our thoughts out loud, we might realize a lot easier what it is that we're thinking about and why. I invite all of you to do that in community if you have to. I invite all of you, if you have my Discord, if you are in a Discord server that I am in and you want to read this book, you are very welcome to talk to me about it, because I think it's better to sit in discomfort and then talk about it with other people than to be in discomfort and then take it out, so to speak, on the book itself and the message that it's trying to portray. Because at the end of the day, if we sit with our discomfort and then we have someone we can talk to about that, and we can understand that discomfort does not mean dislike and vice versa, we can come to different conclusions. And maybe, just maybe, we can start reading difficult books again that make us feel uncomfortable because we're supposed to be uncomfortable. And I think that that's pretty neat. So, yeah, after that entire lecture, which I'm a little bit sorry about just because I don't necessarily like coming off as preachy, but after that entire lecture, I do highly encourage you to pick up this book. It is fantastic, it is heartbreaking, it is incredibly difficult to get through. There are no answers to a lot of the questions posed by different characters, because there's no answers that people can give that would satisfy anyone or everyone. But I think precisely because of that, this book is incredibly important, and it is also so devastatingly written that I really need more people to pick it up. So, yes, I'm gonna turn off the camera now because that means I can turn my AC back on because I am sweating a lot. It is so warm here. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Please leave your opinions on this book if you have read it down in the comments, or tell me in the comments down below if this made you want to pick it up. And if you have experienced something like this where people are in discomfort about a certain book and then don't necessarily act accordingly, or just dislike it in general because they don't really know what to do with it, let me know in the comments down below if you've noticed a trend like that as well with other books, because I'm very curious about that, and depending on whether or not I have read the book, I might just pick it up because of that. I might want to see what people are talking about there, because I'm always very interested in that. So let me know in the comments down below if there's any books out there that you think people should feel uncomfortable about when they read them because they're so important to current day crises, for example. As always, I hope that you have a nice reading experience and that you keep having a nice reading experience, maybe with a little bit of discomfort on the side, because every once in a while we definitely do need that. And I will see you soon.